So during my recent sit-down and my interview with the Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, he told me President Trump's agenda will be enacted in 200 days legislatively. Watch this. You're in pretty much full agreement with what Donald Trump ran on.
Yes.
And number two, in 200 days, from the legislative side, you are going to be implementing every aspect of that agenda that we talked about.
Yep, and just to
That's a big headline.
And we have cushion in our schedule. If anything slips, because it's really because of Senate issues, we still have time to accommodate all of this stuff in 2017. So I even have safety valves. I have cushions built in the schedule to make sure this all gets done in 2017.
I believe
in case something happens and goes sideways on the Senate.
I'm pretty sure that'll stimulate the economy, get people back to work, and get the economy moving again, which I think we need.
That's what we're hired to do.
All right, Mr. Speaker. We'll see you in 200 days.
Yeah, thank you. Good to see you. So maybe before then.
All right, we continue with former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich. All right, so I gave a pretty hard-hitting monologue on this program and on radio how the president's moving at the speed of Trump, the speed of light. Congress, you know, they said they'd have a plan in the first week, then it became the spring, the summer, even some saying by the end of the year on Obamacare. And so I went and the Speaker said, nope, it's all legislatively going to be done in 200 days. He said that the health care bill, consensus bill, was being scored by the CBO. Then on my radio show, I interviewed Jim Jordan, and I interviewed Congressman Dave Bratt, and I interviewed Congressman Mark Meadows, and they all said they'd never even seen the bill that's being scored. And I'm like, what's going on here? I'm getting nervous. Does that concern you?
No, I think it's a process of people trying to get things done. I think that's the legislative process. Look, I think that there's going to be a lot of turmoil, and I think Paul Ryan thinks that. That's why he said to you he's built in some cushion. These are huge, huge issues, and people can legitimately disagree about different parts of it. The leadership is going to have a bill to repeal Obamacare and replace it. The leadership's also going to have a tax bill sometime this summer.
Can I just ask
one
question,
though? These are enormous bills.
How is it possible they haven't shared the bill with the House, but yet it's being scored by CBO, and these Republicans don't know what's in it?
Well, I think it's possible because, frankly, they're going to have to keep playing with the bill in terms of legislative drafting until they can get it scored right. I personally would abolish the Congressional Budget Office. I think it is a very big mistake to allow them to be the arbiters. They were totally wrong on Obamacare. They are dishonest, and they frankly were wrong by such a huge margin. It's absurd to let them be responsible. But I understand what Ryan's trying to do. Ryan wants to find a bill as a baseline, bring it to the conference and say, look, this is a core document. Now, let's argue about amendments. Let's argue about a variety of steps. He's not going to get a single bill through on that scale without amendments. And he knows that. And he knows that, for example, the Freedom Caucus, the conservative wing of the party, is going to be fighting over a couple of issues. He's also got to raise the question, will he get a single Democratic vote? Because if he has to carry the whole thing on the Republican side, he has a relatively narrow margin for error.
All right, I'm impatient by nature. I've had a sense of urgency since I came out of the womb. I like to get things done faster. Am I being too impatient and expecting? Like, I was a little upset they didn't have a replacement consensus bill already done after Election Day. And it seems that this is going a little too slow for me. Is 200 days about right legislatively? You got a lot done in 100 days.
Well, we got a lot done in the House in 100 days.
Right.
But I suspect you go back and look at how long it took us working with the Senate. These are very different institutions. And the challenge that Mitch McConnell has as majority leader with 52 votes in the Senate is radically different than the challenge that Speaker Ryan has. And frankly, I like Speaker Ryan's job a lot better because you have a lot more power and a lot more control. But there's another thing to remember, Sean. You and I were very convinced that Donald Trump would win. We were very convinced that it mattered for American history that Donald Trump would win. But there were a lot of people who just were throwing their hearts into the election. They weren't thinking about this stuff. They were just thinking about how do we beat Hillary Clinton. And I think this is very different than either Reagan. Reagan had 16 years from the time he gave his first great Goldwater speech to the time he got to be the president. I had, ironically, 16 years from the time I arrived as a freshman until we became a majority and I was Speaker. We had a long time to build this thing, think it through, work with people like the Heritage Foundation. Now you got a brand new presidency, and it is totally different. I'm working on a book now called Understanding Trump, and I can tell you, Trump is so different from any president I've ever seen. I mean, you got to go back in many ways to Andrew Jackson to have a real feel for him, to Theodore Roosevelt in some other ways. But this guy is different. Well, now you got Ryan, who, remember, at one point there was real tension. You had Ryan and you had Trump like this. They've been having dinner. They've been talking with each other. Reince Priebus is doing a great job because he is Paul Ryan's closest friend, and he is Donald Trump's chief of staff. They're gradually coming together. I think that's a big deal.
Okay, so 200 days you think is a real possibility in terms of the time frame, and you don't think it... All right, listen, I'm willing to take the Speaker at his word, but I was surprised that fellow congressmen, Republicans, had no idea about the bill. That surprised me, but I'll keep an eye on it. We're going to hold them accountable.
No, but that...
What?
We should. Well, let me just say this. McConnell and Ryan are both very strong, very mature personalities. Both of them centralize things more than I would, but that's their style. They're now working with Trump, and they're getting to know each other better and better. These are three really determined people. I suspect that 200 days fits exactly within where the Trump team wants to be, and I think you're going to see, I mean, look, you know me. If this stuff breaks down, I'm going to be on the show saying it's breaking down. I'm not going to cover for it.
All right, that's a promise.
But I'm moderately optimistic, okay?
I was more optimistic when I talked to him than less optimistic when I talked to the other guys. So, all right, Mr. Speaker, thank you. Good to see you.